My name is Lynette Gross. I am Don Gross's wife, and we happened to drive by this house on one of the Madison Historic Christmas Home Tours, and I got online and looked at the pictures and immediately said, Don, we're in trouble now, because I knew we would be wanting to buy this house. And eventually that is what we did. And so we spend time in Carmel, Indiana, and we also spend time down here. Our house in Carmel has been on the home tour before, and so now we're adding this house in Madison, Indiana. When we bought this house, it had not been abused, but it had not been terribly well taken care of either. So it gave us an opportunity to do quite a bit of decorating, which I love to do, and a little bit of remodeling to the house, but not much. We have tried to keep it basically the way it was made. The original owners of the house lived here for many, many years, and they were always very proud of this house. The original owner worked with Stratton Hammond to build the house, and he has many notes and things about the house, how he wanted it done. So, and his wife was a very interesting person also, very much characters, and it's been said that if people that buy a Stratton Hammond home will stay there until they retire and move into something smaller. They just don't leave the house, and that's pretty much the truth. Okay, as Don mentioned earlier, one of the things that I have done for years is collect antique dolls, and you know, if you collect antique dolls, you're eventually going to have to sell antique dolls, because you have no more money and no more space, and you need to find ways to have more money and more space. And also, the way you really learn about a doll is to buy it and own it and have it with you and do research. And I love the research side of things. I love the historical side, and I particularly like the social history and the female history involved in dolls. Dolls were something that women could create and compete with men in a man's world in the early 1800s, 1700s, and they didn't have to be right out in the open. Men didn't know the difference. Oh, my wife's just playing with dolls. But there were many, many women that created dolls, particularly cloth dolls, that supported their families with that craft. I keep a lot of my earlier dolls down here in Madison, and I'm not going to show you all of these. Your eyes would be rolling back in your head, and you would just probably die if you had to see all of them. But many of these are from Europe. Germany was a big area for doll making, especially around Coburg and a little bit in Berlin, Nuremberg. That area is where many of the dolls were made. And another fascinating thing I think about dolls is the fact that they're made of so many different kinds of materials. And it often depended on what materials were available to people. Germany was known for fabulous clay along the rivers, so they did bisque. And they also had the Black Forest and wood, so there was a lot of wood dolls from around there too. So some of these are from Germany. And papier-mâché is another thing that came along with that. And so some of the dolls that are here are made of different kinds of materials, and I'll go ahead and show them, just point out a few things to you. One kind of doll that was very popular was a wax doll, and that's a wax doll from England. That's her original outfit. And there's another wax a little bit later. And let's see what else we have. This wax. That may be the only wax ones I have here. In Italy, they had creche figures, which were often used in big dioramas, and they would have manger scenes, nativity scenes, but they also used the creche figures to show scenes of life of the time. And there's one huge museum there that I assume is still open, that has life-size creche figures. And you can go in and sit down, and then the creche figures move, and it's just fabulous. But this is and they usually have the creche figures. Here's one right here, And there's another one right there, and they're all wood carved. Those have their old clothing. And the hands are usually outstretched. And you can see his hand is pointed, but his beard and everything is all carved of wood. England was also known for antique dolls of wood. And this is a very early wooden doll. And she is probably from the 1700s. Early 1700s, maybe. This is from Italy. I went into a shop in Italy when I was visiting and bought a few things, and the owner gave me this head that his family had made. It was kind of a prototype. Let's see what else we have here. That's interesting. This is also quite an interesting piece. It's from 1850, and I do have some postcards. They deaccessioned from a museum, and this was in 1850, and it was kind of a parody on the over-excessiveness of the wealthy class. And if you look close, you can see the woman who's rather buxom and very healthy. She's very well fed, and her husband is very well fed, and it's just all overdone, and it's supposed to be that way. This is a dancing doll, which is rather interesting, and this is another one that will move around and dance. There's another of the creche figures, and another wax. This is a doll that I bought in Germany. It is paper mache and wood, and I had seen it there one year and didn't buy it, and contacted the woman and managed to go back the next year and get it. So that's what usually happens. You don't forget things. This is considered a walking doll. I'm going to see if I can get her out. I probably won't be able to get her back in, but that's okay. She may come out, she may not. Oh, maybe you can just roll in. But she has all sorts of legs. They're on wheels. You see her legs? That's okay, don't worry about that. And it looks like she's walking. She's got like 8 legs and they twirl, which is rather interesting. This is a doll, and these are getting to be very hard to get now because they're usually made of ivory, and you know ivory now is endangered species, which I understand. But this is from Asia, Asian area, and it's called a doctor's doll. And the women at that time were not allowed to disrobe for it, even for a doctor. So the doctor would have a doll like this, and then the woman would just come in and point to the area that was causing her a problem. And so I have a small collection of these. I think this is about the only one I have here in Madison. But I do like them because they're so unique and interesting, and they're very detailed. The older ones are usually darker because the ivory has darkened. I even have one that it's a maternity one, and there's an embryo in the belly of the doll, so that the doctor can talk to a woman about it. Here on this chair, and there's kind of all over the place, is another wooden doll from England, from London. They're also known for a lot of their great baby-type wax dolls. Okay, ready? Well, now we're going into the family room, or the great room, some people would call it. And I tried when we bought this house, it's our second home, to not have very many dolls here, but of course, as you can see, that never works. And these 2 dolls up here, which are from Japan, are mid-1800s, and they were kind of my inspiration piece for colors and things in this house. One of the first things that I bought. And I bought them from a gentleman named Alan Pate, who is an absolute authority on Japanese dolls. And these 2 have a great story to them. They're paper mache, all original outfits, and you can see that the man that's kind of kneeling down is holding a baby. That orange it's a baby. And it's based on an old myth from Japan, and the woman was an empress. Her husband was kind of a weenie, and again, this is one of those stories where the women are stronger than the man. And he was supposed to fight in a war, and he backed out, was not going to help the country. So she decided to step up and do it. And she was pregnant at the time. And they said that she purportedly stuffed her uterus with stones so that she would not give birth until after the war was over. And so she managed to be made the emperor, the empress of the country. Then she had her baby, and so then the guy that's kneeling down is like her sycophant servant, and he takes care of the baby. And I should know the names of those creatures, but you know what? They're very long, and they're very foreign to me, so I can't tell you. But Alan Pate, if you look him up online, if you want to know anything about Asian dolls, he's the guy. These, I'll just walk through a few things down here that are sort of interesting. There's 4 seasons, and those are wood, hand-carved wood. They're rather interesting. And then this lady right here is called the tea server, and she's an Asian lady, but actually she was made in Germany. Let me see if I think I've got her. Automatas were very popular in Germany, and a lot of women had them. They weren't ever really for children. They were mainly for adults and something for them to sit around and have as things of beauty. And I remember as a young child watching movies and seeing those beautiful, beautiful dolls and just thinking, oh my gosh, I just would love to have some of those someday. And to me, the biggest tragedy of Heidi was definitely not Grandpapa. It was when the horrible old governess, Clara, walks and the governess drops the doll and the head breaks. That to me was the tragedy. Grandpapa, who cares? Which is too bad, but that's the way it is. So, and then this corner just has a few dolls in it. This I brought back from Germany, which is amazing with the case. That one's wax. This one is supposed to be the patroness of lost causes and marriages. So I thought, okay, could use that. I'm going to get that. And let's see. I also have a few artist dolls scattered around. There is one artist doll back here that was made by the Roches, R-O-C-H-E, in Bath, England. Very interesting doll. They try to create dolls that look like they're old. They're not. These 2 dolls are WPA dolls, Works Project Administration, and with the Depression, the president established the WPA and had to give people jobs. And so there are people that made different kinds of dolls. And those are 2 that were made by them. This is another one that is also an Asian doll. And most likely made by us to survive. It was the way they made their money to survive. All right. Let me go in here and I'll show you these, and then Don can take over for a while.
Okay, I turned it off. I'll set it back up.
Okay, set it back up and I'll show you a couple things in here and then we'll turn it over to Don. Okay. One of my favorite kinds of dolls, as I mentioned before, are artist dolls that were made by women in the 1800s and 1700s, and cloth dolls. And they're often not terribly attractive looking, but they're survivors. This is a doll that is all cloth and has an oil painted face. And they often show quite a bit of artistry. This lady is an automata also. I won't make her work now because she's rather evil looking. But she knits. And she is interesting because she knits and her head rocks back and forth. This is a particularly interesting doll here. I could probably make this one work. This is an automata too. And let me see if she's going to work for us today. I can find her. Little spot. Where are you? There you are. Do I need to turn off those lights? Or you can see she's a peddler, and she has 3 roses that are fabric roses, and they open up, and one is a doll dancing, turning, one is a little mouse, and one is, oh, there it goes, the head of a monkey. And these, you just wind them up. And then you can plug them in. Or not plug them in, that wouldn't work. Pull out the stopper and then you go. And she's quite interesting because she also, her eyes actually do open and close, and her head moves, and so there's a lot of moving parts. I sort of had to sneak this one in at one point. But it's big enough Don, of course, would see it. He